YouTube! Today in the Night Librarian, I am doing my October wrap-up. This is an auspicious occasion because I actually completed my TBR list. That never happens. I read all of the books I said I was going to read. I'm very proud of myself. And not only did I read all the books on my TBR list, I read 2 additional books. Because why? I'm a champion. I read 13 books this month. It's a lot of books. I just want to get this like wrap up going. I'm going to try out a different format, so let me know in the comments below if you like this format because I think it's like a cool idea. We'll see how it goes. First off, I read 3 romances this month. They are all by Tessa Dare. I loved Any Duchess Will Do. I gave it 5 stars. Super fun. It follows a rakish duke with a heart of gold, which is like my kink when it comes to historical romances. I love rakes with a heart of gold. They're like my thing. And the gist of the book is that it's kind of like a way smuttier My Fair Lady. Basically, Griff's mom is like, go get married already, I want grandbabies. And he's just like, and she's like, okay, here's like a room full of ladies, pick one. And he's just like, okay, fine, I'm gonna pick like the least like one you would like. And so it's Pauline, she's the barmaid, and her mother's like, perfect, I'll turn her into a duchess, and then hence duchess lessons. However, turns out they're kind of great for each other, and Pauline is the best. She's very quick-witted. She wants to open a dirty bookstore. Like, she's a girl after my own heart. Oh, and how's the smut? Thanks for asking. It is A+. Very good smut in this one. Highly recommend. Very steamy. Like, you're gonna need a minute. It's good. This one's good. I also read Lord Dashwood Missed Out, and this is a novella. It's the end kind of the Spindle Cove series from Tessa Dare, which is what I wanted to finish this month. And it was okay. Like, I gave it 3 stars. It's like an extended epilogue for Any Duchess Will Do. So I enjoyed getting to see all those characters again. There's like some adventure in it with all the guys have to like go find this woman who's the author of this pamphlet, Lord Dashwood Missed Out. And there's a snowstorm, and she's like an author, so she's coming to speak at Pauline's bookstore. She's lost in the storm. All of the Spindle Cove boys have to go off and look for her, so they have like an adventure, and that's fun. However, I did not care for the romance in this one. It's Eleonora and Lord Dashwood, and I think Lord Dashwood's kind of a douche. Like, I didn't like him. I was like, you're just vaguely misogynistic a lot of the time. And their whole, like, relationship is based on, like, oh, we're gonna bicker and fight the whole time, but you love me. And I'm like, that sounds exhausting. Oh my gosh. So I feel like they would either, like, get divorced immediately or just have, like, spiteful hate sex forever. I'm not sure which, or if one of those is better than the other, but yeah, it's not a coupling I, like, go for. I also read The Governess Game by Tessa Dare. I buddy read this with Lauren at the Novel Lush and Stephanie from Steph's Romance Book Talk. I will link their channels down below. You should check them out because they are amazing ladies. It's just adorable. Like, if you just want something delightful and smutty and funny, like, this is it. Like, this is perfect. We were introduced to both of these characters in the Duchess deal, and it is Alexandra, who is kind of a bookish woman who, she wants to be an astronomer, and then you have Chase, who is like bookstore bae. Basically, she ran into him at a bookstore once and had been kind of obsessed with him ever since, and then she's like, oh, he'll never remember me, and then like wacky happenings happen because it's a romantic comedy. She ends up being the governess to his 2 wards, and these 2 wards, they're like creepy Wednesday Addams children. Like, they have this doll and they kill it off in like graphic, horrible ways every day, and they have doll funerals. So they're like morbid little Wednesday Addams children, and like, they're kind of adorable in their creepy way. Like, I'm into them. Basically, this is automatically gonna be 5 stars. I love this series so much that like, it would be really hard to put a book out in this series that I won't like. I will say Duchess Deal is the better of the 2. It's not as strong as Duchess Deal, but it is super fun. I had fun reading with people. Like, people wanted to read a smutty book with me, and that was delightful. So, yeah, I recommend. It's really fun. During October, I read 3 different debut novels. They're all very different stories. They're all YA, but very different genres. The first debut I read was Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. This does fall under the trappings of debut novel syndrome because while it is well written, it is not very original. Like, it's kind of the same plot I've seen in almost every YA fantasy novel I've ever read. So you have a girl who's trying to take back her throne from a tyrannical dictator, and then there's a love triangle and magic, and that's like every book. It's not something really original to the point where I'm like, ooh, this one stands out. It's basically one in the sea of many. The thing that does make it stand out though is that it was particularly well written. I gave it 4 stars. Had to take off a star because it wasn't very original, but it was well written. So there is that. I did like the heroine. Her name is Theo, and she has this really interesting ability, and it's scamming people. She's very good at figuring out what people want or expect from her and then just giving it to them. And by giving it to them, she's getting what she wants out of them. So she's very much kind of a con artist, which I appreciate because there's not a lot of like female leads who are that conniving, so I do appreciate that. But as far as plot goes, it's a plot we've seen a billion times before. So yeah, it is very debut in its lack of originality, but it is well written, so I do recommend. It's just like, don't go in here thinking you're gonna get, you're reinventing the wheel, because it's not. I finally got to read Brightly Burning by Alexa Dunn. I kept putting it off because I'm a monster. The easiest way to describe this is to say it's Jane Eyre in space. That's what it is. If you want to read a sci-fi retelling of Jane Eyre with the emphasis being on the Jane Eyre adaptation, this is gonna be your total jam. Really good in that perspective. I really enjoyed how she adapted Jane Eyre because I think she did a particularly good job of it. However, if you came into this book expecting like something really like heavy on the sci-fi and like really going into like sci-fi and government corruption and space, this is not going to be the book for you. So just know that going in. It does play the science aspect a little fast and loose. Not all the science in here seems like something that was the focus of the story. It seems like an afterthought. And that's okay because the whole point of the story is that it's Jane Eyre. So if you want to read a Jane Eyre retelling that's particularly done well, I recommend. I really enjoyed how she adapted it. It was well done. I also read To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. I have heard both good things and bad things about this book. And Leanna from Leanna's Library, she has recommended me this book so many times because she's basically told me it's like a way stabbier version of The Little Mermaid. And I was like, I'm listening. And it is a much more violent retelling of The Little Mermaid, but like it had problems. I did give this 4 stars because the ending saved it for me. I really did enjoy the ending, but there were things that kept happening in it that took me out of the story. The Little Mermaid character in this, his name is Lyra. She is a siren, but in like our nomenclature, siren is the same as like mermaid. So think mermaid, typical mermaid. She lives in the ocean, okay? So she finally has legs and she goes to this city she's never been to before, mind you, because it's on land. She lives in the ocean. And she's walking around the city and she's describing what she's seeing. She's like, oh, there's this kind of flower and that kind of flower. And then she describes something as looking like rose petals. And I kept thinking, I'm like, isn't this bitch a mermaid? Like, why does she know what the flowers are? Like, she's never been on land. Why would she know what things are? So, like, I kept pulling me out of the story because I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense for the character. But, like, I get why she was doing it because a lot of the writing in it felt a little esoteric for the sake of being esoteric. Like I was saying, like, something looking like rose petals, it's a very striking visual image. And the writing is very lyrical. It's very esoteric, like I said, and it's beautifully written, but at the expense of saying things that wouldn't make sense for the character. So I think like maybe a copy editor missed something here because I'm like, why does she know what the flowers are? She's never seen flowers before. She lives in the ocean, so that kept bothering me. However, other than that, I did enjoy the story. I did finish it. I liked the ending. Kind of a happy ending, actually, surprisingly, with all the bleak, dark stabbiness, but I'm a sucker for happy endings. I like them. So, 4 stars. Solid debut. During October, I read 2 standalone books. They're both in the horror genre, so I figured they were both going to be perfect for October. My official Halloween pick this year was The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. So before I read this, I thought this was going to be much more lighthearted than it ended up being. Like, I thought she was like a girl going to Halloween Town. There's going to be witches and vampires and werewolves and all these kind of stuff. Turns out, nope. Just vampires. Really vicious vampires. And like, basically this whole book has like a coating of nihilism in it. So it got real dark real quick. And I was like, oh my. Like, I was expecting like a fun romp, and nope. Not a fun romp. It is dark. However, well-written darkness. I was like really feeling this nihilism. It works for a vampire story. We follow Tana, who is a girl in a world where vampires are real. Everybody knows about vampires. All vampires have to go live in a cold town, so essentially they warden off parts of the city, and that's where vampires live. And if you go in, you're not allowed back out because you probably got bitten. So essentially there's like quarantined areas for vampires. If you want to get really deep into like the nihilism that is being a vampire, this is the book for you. Beautifully written, very dark though. So if you're looking for like a ray of sunshine, there's none of this. It's pitch black, so just be prepared. I also read 10 by Gretchen McNeil, and I gave it like 3 stars. Overall, it's just average. It's basically like a PG-13 teen horror movie. So if those are your jam, like, you were gonna love this because that's exactly what it is. It's kind of loosely based around And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. The gist of this story is that there's this island with a house on it that's owned by a popular girl in school. 10 people get invited to this like weekend party at the house. So they all go, and then there's this huge storm, so they can't leave the island. And sure enough, people start getting killed off. It was supposed to be like a horror comedy, but when you're trying to force the jokes in there, like you're forcing them down the story's throat, like it doesn't help the narrative. Like it removes any tension you built. And I get it, like having the comic relief moment is really good, but not at the expense of all this, like the tension you built. Like it doesn't help. So yeah, it's kind of very average. The rest of the books I read this month were all parts of a series, either the beginning, a continuation of a series, but all parts of a series. Oh my gosh, I finally just read Nixie Unleashed by Scott Rentgen. It is so good. I loved Nixia. It was one of my top picks for 2017. This is the continuation. I could not wait for it. I actually won this as an ARC, so Scott signed it because I won it from him, and I was really excited about it, so oh my gosh. This is a continuation of the Nixia story, and basically it starts up exactly where Nixia left off. Emmett, our protagonist, he has just landed on this new planet. And Babel is still evil, they're up to no good, and all of these like teen characters have to like band together, and like there's no one they can trust except for each other essentially. Everyone's trying to fuck them. How do they get the least bit fucked? Like that's like their whole goal. I will say that this is a middle book of a trilogy, and it does feel like one. It is super bridgy because like it meanders a lot throughout the middle of this book. Like nothing's really going on. It's all like world building, I guess. They're just exploring this planet. But it's nothing that actually furthers the overall story arc with Babel. It's just a lot of pages of these kids like, there's a new building and there's a new thing and like, look at that food. It's like, that's all cool, but it doesn't like further the plot. It's just like things that are happening. So the middle of this book does meander quite a bit, and it was like, I had to keep chugging through. The beginning of the book and the end of the book, very good though. So I think it was that residual energy from Nixia, and then like the building momentum for the last book of the series. Like the last book of the series is gonna be bananas. So I'm really excited about that one. So this book served its purpose as a bridge. It like 1 and 3 are going to be awesome, and they had to get to it somehow, and it's this book. I also read The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This is a very polarizing book. I feel like everyone that I know who's read it did not like it, and then I was like, I liked it a lot. I gave it 5 stars. Like, I really liked it a lot, quite. Oh my goodness gracious. So I can, like, I don't know how my opinion is so different than everyone else's. Did we read the same book? I really wanted to read this though because I felt Throne of Glass started super abruptly and I felt like I was missing like a chunk of the story. Like kind of like you turned on a movie but it was already 20 minutes in and you're like, I know I missed something but I can like pick it up. That's how it felt. So this was that missing 20 minutes of the movie. And it filled in all the gaps I wanted it to fill in. So I felt like I actually got to know the world this was set in and Selena more. So now Throne of Glass makes more sense. So yeah, this was like useful for me. This is a set of 5 novellas. It's kind of the pivotal points of Selena's backstory that led her to the beginning of Throne of Glass. So if you've read Throne of Glass, you know it does not start in a good place for Selena. So you know this book is gonna end horribly. Going in, I knew it was gonna end badly and it was gonna be sad. And then when it ended badly, I was like just devastated because it was so much worse than I thought it was gonna be. Oh my gosh. So it's a very unhappy ending. But was it worth the journey? I think so. I actually felt like this was really fun, action-packed. I think it's just really a matter of whether or not you like Selena. I like Selena. I think she's like a cool lady. She has a lot of faults. I will give people that. The people who don't like her point out the same things. Is that, you know, she's very trusting, consider she's an assassin. She kind of just like believes what everyone tells her without like looking up an answer or like thinking about it. She just goes, oh, well, they said that was what happened, so that's what happened. It's like, you could go look for yourself and see what happened. So she's just very like kind of clueless sometimes, and it's just like, is that just because you need to forward the plot? I'm not sure. But like, it's just whether or not you like her or not, and I kind of like her. I like the fact that she's an anti-hero. She's a total asshole, but she's also very empathetic. So she's my girl. I like her. I like her. Then again, I haven't really read much of the series yet, so maybe that opinion will change. But for right now, I like her. I continued on with the Grisha trilogy this month. I read the middle book of the trilogy, which is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. I'm having a hard time with the Grisha trilogy because I want to like it more than I actually do. Like, when I describe the book, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. There's nothing like extraordinary about it that like really would set me off and get me super excited and tell everybody I know to read it. I gave this like 3.5 stars because, you know what, considering it's called Siege and Storm, there's very little siege and storm in it. Like the beginning has a lot of action, the end has a lot of action, the middle, nothing happens. And I don't particularly like Alina. I know people like her, but like I just find her moody and like and just whiny and just she's just ineffective as a heroine and like she bugs me. And then it bugs me that I'm bugged because these same traits that Alina has are traits that I have defended in other characters, but I don't like them in Alina. So I'm like, what is it about Alina that I don't like? I don't get it. However though, we're introduced to this new character named Nikolai, and he is life. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with Nikolai. He's got like this big dick energy, and I'm all about it. He is a pirate, and he's a prince, and he is amazing. Oh my gosh, I know there's a spin-off series coming, and it's Nikolai's story, and I'm like, I just, give it to me now. Like, I want Nikolai. I would be so into all the Nikolai adventures. He is such a fascinating character. I love him to bits. So that kind of saved the book for me, is that this new character got brought in. But yeah, I wish there was more Siege and Storm in this, but I did get Nikolai. So overall, it's okay. A book that wasn't on my TBR list that I managed to squeeze in was Vengeful by v.e.schwab. It's so good. Like, this is what bookgasms are made of. It is so good. Your girl likes a juicy character study. This book is like composed of character study. So that's kind of the divide, because a lot of people like v.e.schwab books because like their plot is very fantastical and action based, and if you like that, these are going to be so dull for you. However, if you want to like really get deep into a character and explore all of like the relationships with people and how they interact with the world and how they think, like bookgasms, you're gonna like freak out in this series. It's so good. This picks up 5 years after the end of Vicious, so you meet up again with Eli and Victor and Sydney and Mitch. You're also introduced to 2 new characters in this. You meet Marcella, who is the titular character, and you meet June. These ladies are excellent. Oh my gosh, they're basically just slaying the patriarchy, and like, they're beautiful and amazing, and like I just wanted to read about them constantly. Every time the focus shifted away from Marcella, I immediately wanted to switch it back to Marcella. She was so fascinating. And I really appreciated that their story arcs were distinctly feminine, because a lot of how they think about things, the reasons for doing things, is definitely based in femininity, and it made them very fascinating, because a lot of times strong female characters, they basically emulate male characters. And I like in this, they don't emulate male characters like at all. 0%. They are very female and just dope. So it's a subtle distinction that you don't think about until you read a book that has that distinction, and you're like, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? Also, this is an ending, but I will say, the door is ajar. Like, you could definitely have another book in this series, and I really hope she writes one more, because I feel like there needs to be one more arc to really finish off all of these characters and bring them all together in one book one more time for like one final ride. It needs to happen. Like, and they left the door open that it could happen, so like, now I'm just gonna speculate about what could happen forever until she writes another book. Hopefully it won't be 5 more years, but oh my gosh, like, the door is open. The door is open, guys. The last book I read this month was Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the only like shadow hunter-y series I have yet to read, and I wanted to just get it in. I wanted to start reading it before the end of the year so I could just finish it off. I do not understand the hype around this series. I gave it 2 stars. Like, it had its moments, but like, dear Lord, it was bad. Like, ugh. Like, the characters are just bad. Like, I didn't like them, and the more I like thought about it, I kept seeing a lot of parallels to other characters. Dear Lord, it's the Mortal Instruments again. Seriously. It's the same story. Like, it's the same. It is the same except set in Victorian England, and the villain is like slightly more evil. It's the City of Bones and Clockwork Angel are the same book. And I didn't like City of Bones, so I was just like, oh no. It was like that moment where you're like, what have I done? I've gone too far. So it was like that reaction while reading a book. Just going, oh no. Oh no. I've done this to myself. It's really the same story. Like, think about it. It's about Tessa. She comes to the Shadowhunter world, not knowing what it is, but she knows she has like a power and she can see things, and she comes into this world and she has to learn about downworlders. What are those? Oh, hi Clary, you're the same person. Oh, there's a snarky asshole boy who's like the most handsome guy you've ever seen and who's interested in you but keeps pushing you away because he's a dark past. Oh, hello Jace. Oh no, Will, you're the same character. And then there's Jem, who's like self-effacing, the nice guy. I'm friends with you, but I also kind of like you. Oh my gosh, you're Simon. Same character. And then there's Jessamine, who's kind of like the twatty mean girl, pretty girl. And she reminds me a little bit of Isabel Lightwood because she's the same kind of snarky bitch. And I was like, oh gosh. It's City of Bones. It's the same story as City of Bones. What have I done? Oh no, I've gone too far. As soon as I realized I'm reading the same book again, like my heart just sank. Because I did not like the Mortal Instruments that much, and then I'm like, oh gosh, now I have to read about it in an era where there's less technology. Awesome. It got 2 stars. Like, it had its moments of some cool stuff happening, but overall I'm just like, oh dear Lord, how did she get away with writing the same book again and no one caught on? How did this happen? Whew. 13 books. 13 books in October. That is a respectable number of books, and a lot of these books were very like thick. They're all kind of very fantastical too, and a little bit of smut on top just for like, you know, the icing on the cake. So I feel like it was like a good group of books, and I squeezed in 2 extra books. Like, I'm very proud of myself right now. I'm just like, I am the queen of reading. With that, I am done with my wrap up. Let me know in the comments down below if you like this new format I'm playing around with. Let me know if you like it. Also, let me know if you've read any of these books. What were your opinions? What did you like? What did you not like? Let me know all down there in the comments. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I will see you guys soon. Bye!